is also a strong commitment on the part of the international community to reform the UN work on international peace and security. In order to make the most of this new impetus, we must now work together to turn ambitions of the Pact into concrete results and improvements. The Security Council too must play its part and act on the key action points proposed in the Pact that are of relevance to the Council and the international peace and security matters. I thank you very much for your attention.
我感谢罗索查先生阁下的发言。我现在请乌克兰外交部副部长别查女士阁下发言。
Mr. President, Ukraine commends the initiative of the Presidency of China to hold this important debate and takes note of the briefers' presentations. As it rightly pointed out in the concept paper for this debate, our world has entered a new period of turbulence and changes. This means, in particular, that the foundations of multilateralism that was supposed to be the bedrock of the global security and stability are under immense strain. The Russian Federation's war of aggression against Ukraine is among the starkest manifestations of this crisis. The very institutions, first and foremost the UN, rooted in international law and designed to prevent such conflicts, unfortunately failed to stop the aggressor. It is true, as the concept note reminds, that thanks to the UN efforts, no new world war has happened. However, this offers little consolation to those Ukrainians whose towns have been completely destroyed, to the scale comparable to or even exceeding the devastation of the Second World War. This war is not only about Ukraine. This war is not only about Europe. The Russian Federation has turned food and energy into weapons, exacerbating global crisis. Its manipulation of energy supplies has destabilized markets far beyond Europe. Its nuclear threats undermine decades of non-proliferation efforts. This is a direct assault on global security and stability. Moreover, suffering, destruction, and casualties are not confined to Ukraine only. They are also endured in other conflicts across the globe, in particular in Africa and the Middle East. Beyond this, we confront the attempts to undermine the credibility and efficiency of key multilateral institutions from inside. Nowhere are these malicious attempts more evident than in this particular chamber, where a state that wages a war of aggression enjoys a privilege of permanent seat and veto power. The Security Council cannot serve its primary function if it is paralyzed by those who actively undermine this mission. This situation exposes a structural flaw within the Security Council and in the existing global governance system as a whole. To address it, our multilateral system must be strengthened with preventive and enforcement mechanisms. We're convinced that concrete actions are required to ensure that a state in the permanent seat, which is involved in a conflict or a situation that the Council is considering, is limited in the exercise of its veto right, as it cannot do it impartially due to a conflict of interest. If irresponsible behavior, even from the permanent seat, comes at a cost, the integrity and efficiency of our platform will be secured. If the UN begins to resemble a boxing ring with fighters, their supporters and passive spectators, the prospects for the global security will be very bleak. Distinguished colleagues, achieving comprehensive, just and lasting peace for Ukraine will be a litmus test for multilateralism, and it will be also a litmus test for the UN. As most of you are aware, we have submitted a draft resolution of the General Assembly on the matter dedicated to the anniversary of the full-scale war of Russia against Ukraine. It will be adopted on February 24th. In that draft, we in particular propose to acknowledge multilateral processes aimed at achieving just peace consistent with this charter, with the UN Charter, as well as efforts by various members in presenting their visions for settlement. It is a question now if we, as a global community, can uphold the fundamental principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity enshrined in the UN Charter, or will we allow aggression and impunity to set dangerous precedents for future conflicts? The answer will determine whether multilateralism remains a viable mechanism for global peace or whether it will erode into irrelevance. We believe that international support for Ukraine's fight for freedom and independence implies joint upholding the territorial integrity and sovereignty as imperative principles of international law, as well as returning to the respect for the UN Charter. I encourage you to support this draft, as it will be the right answer to the above questions. We're confident that support of Ukraine in a situation of illegal, unprovoked, and unjustified Russia's war of aggression means support of the territorial integrity as a UN principle. Ukraine, in its turn, stands ready to work with all responsible nations to ensure that the UN is not just a forum for statements, but a force for action. We urge this Council to rise to the challenge and take decisive steps forward, towards meaningful reform. The cost of inaction is too high. It's not just for Ukraine, but for the future of multilateralism and the international order itself. Thank you.
我感谢别查女士阁下的发言。我仅提醒各位发言人将发言时间限制在4分钟以内，以便安理会能够快速开展工作。下面我请科威特代表发言。
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا السيد الرئيس، ويشرفني أن ألقي هذا البيان بالنيابة عن المجموعة العربية. ومن خلالكم السيد الرئيس أرحب بداية بمعالي السيد وانغي وزير الخارجية جمهورية الصين الشعبية الصديقة، وأتقدم لكم بالشكر والثناء على عقدكم هذه الجلسة الهامة وما يمثله ذلك من تسليط الضوء على أحد أبرز الموضوعات المطروحة أمامنا اليوم بشكل متكرر: حفظ السلم والأمن الدوليين من خلال ممارسة تعددية الأطراف، إصلاح وتحسين الحوكمة العالمية. حيث أن جلسة اليوم تتيح لنا الفرصة لمناقشة وتقييم مسؤوليات